I always want to remind my American viewers of this because I think it's kind of important to remind them what happened. Um, especially in the wake of the 2019 general election. Of course, Boris Johnson comes in, the UK version of Trump, um, wins on this, massive, landslide election, um, has this massive majority, can do anything he wants, and well, what did he really go on to do? you know, oh, he got his Brexit deal done through. Well, still didn't stop, of course, the Brexit faction completely disintegrating into realizing that they either A, wanted even a harder Brexit done, or all of a sudden, a lot of them realizing, well, actually, a lot of those regulations we actually kind of like because that keeps a lot of our businesses in our constituency, in business. And I think if we are seen to be damaging those businesses by following through on these regulations, which stops them from, trading with Europe, which bear in mind, they have already seen those consequences from that from the past couple of years. It's no surprise that if you look at an election map and you compare it with Brexit sort of economic losses, a lot of those places that had the deepest economic losses voted Conservative in 2019 and then didn't, in 2024. Coincidence? I'll let you be the judge of that. But yeah, it is kind of I think reassuring, or at least I think you should find it very reassuring that don't worry. From what we've seen, there is now a Republican pushback because I have said for the longest time, Republicans are not all going to be on the Trump train. Some are going to be, yay, Trump. Meanwhile, trying to, disappear into the background, basically just in case if it all starts to go wrong, they were like, well, I was never there. I was never in that photo, But yeah, we are starting to see this. And I think it is kind of insane to sort of, I say insane to sort of start thinking it, but I can't believe there isn't a stronger pushback. But I think we see this starting to build and build and build. I think we'll eventually see something sooner or later break the floodgates. So the next couple of videos, in fact, the next three I want to really do is sort of focus on the Republican Party and just what is going on there. Because I find this sort of like Republican Trump resistance somewhat quite fascinating and somewhat quite, I think, interesting as something to sort of follow and at least, keep an eye on over here. Because as you all know, on Tuesday, Trump made some interesting comments about Ukraine, where he parroted basically the Russian propaganda line that somehow Ukraine was responsible for Vladimir Putin invading Ukraine. And oh boy, this has not gone down well with with some Republicans in power. So we're going to get into what's happened there on that, but before we do, please do remember to click on the like, the share button, and of course, down below there is the Patreon page, there's the Buy Me Coffee link, there's the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there is the Pony Club down below as well. So, what has happened? Well, first things first, before we get into some of the Republican stuff that has gone, it is worth reminding you that after those comments were made on Tuesday, we have now had a U-turn. And I think it is very, very important to highlight this U-turn. And then I'll explain why this U-turn has happened. Because Trump has come under a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure on this. So this is in The Guardian highlighting this, that he's done this. So Donald Trump has now reversed course and admitted that Russia did in fact invade Ukraine. I know. Imagine my shock. But no, he has done that, which is good. And we'll explain why that has happened in a moment. So, this was an interview with Fox News Radio today on Friday. He acknowledged that Russia had invaded Ukraine on the order of Vladimir Putin. But he said, of course, because, He's going to try and blame it on someone. But he said that Vladimir Zelensky and the Ukrainian president and the then US President Joe Biden should have averted it. They shouldn't have let him attack. The US president said on Tuesday that Ukraine should have never that should have never have started the war 3 years ago, prompting criticism domestically and internationally. So bear in mind, domestically, internationally, we've already pretty much covered. We've covered that quite extensively this past week, the international criticism. But I think something that hasn't really been covered is the domestic criticism. Because you've got to understand, first of all, the Republican Party's stance on China. The Republican Party stance on China is, or at least it suspects, that it might eventually go to war with China. And then if it does go to war with China on its western seaboard and in the Pacific, that area is going to be pretty much a war zone. It will be the front lines in any sort of war zone scenario. However, meanwhile, on the eastern seaboard, who do you have? Well, you've got Europe. In any eventual or potential war scenario with China, America will need Europe. It will need access to its markets. It may need to see if it can, coax, Europe in militarily. There's a whole range of reasons why the US in that scenario would need Europe certainly on its side in some capacity, whether it be sort of economically or whether it will be militarily. And a lot of Republicans have become very, very uneasy after those comments were made by Trump on Tuesday and the comments by J.D. Vance and Hegseth, because, as we've also been saying a lot recently on this channel, if America's not going to care about European security interests, why then should Europe care about American security interests, namely, of course, China? Because in a potential war scenario, what if we go, well, this is a war that, never should have happened, Donald. You should have just done a deal with Z and, it should have never have happened. It should have been averted. We are not going to sort of, trade with you war materials because we consider that trade of war materials to the US bad, and we want to put pressure on you to end this war. Could happen. Could happen. That it is that scenario that they are very, very much terrified of. And there are rumors going around that Trump received a letter from a number of these pro-Europe Republicans that have turned around to him and gone, you need to rein Hegseth in, you need to rein Vance in, and supposedly they are trying to get Trump to send both of them back to Europe to do a speech at some point in the future, basically trying to reiterate a more pro-European stance from them. Whether that is true or not, we don't know. This is just one of the rumors that is going around. But they've also been bombarded by these sort of pro-European sort of Republicans, turning around going, what are you doing on this? Like, what's going on this area? So there is a lot of resistance to what Trump has said in regards to his comments that he's made on Ukraine, causing, of course, Trump to basically pull a U-turn. This isn't just a turnaround. This is a U-turn. To go from, Ukraine caused the war to, well, no, actually, Russia caused the war. It was Vladimir Putin's order to invade Ukraine. They started it. So it's not a turnabout. It is very, very much a U-turn, and it is because he has been facing a lot of pressure. And there's a couple of things in the not too distant future where the Republicans are going to have quite an interesting fight, particularly over the budget that might be coming up, because a lot of these Republicans are now sensing an opportunity to really start to put the pressure on Trump and use this budget to really get some leverage on him. So interesting things to come down the pipe in America on that front. But as always, let me know what you think about this, because I think that's kind of interesting. It would be very interesting to see all of a sudden JD Vance and Hegseth having to fly over to Europe to give another speech to be the sort of, more pro-Europe. Guys, we didn't mean that at all. We're sorry. Kind of interesting to see if that does come to pass. I doubt that will happen. Like I say, it is very much a rumor that they have sort of Trump received this letter. Whether it is, again, who knows? Like I say, keep an eye on what happens with Hegseth and Vance if they all of a sudden have to, be flying over to Europe sometime in the not too distant future to calm fears down. Who knows? We'll see. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.